Thor Love and Thunder makes a terrible mistake with its dialogue. Just listen to this and let me know if you feel that something is off.
I admire your commitment to each other. It's a beautiful thing. Alas, it's something I'll never have.
After thousands of years of living, you don't seem to know who the hell you are. My hope for you is that one day you will find something to make you feel this shitty.
I have loved before. It didn't work out. They either die a grisly death or they dump you with a handwritten letter. I don't know which is worse, but it's why I keep everyone at arm's length.
It just sounds wrong. Like, these two guys don't talk like they're real people. Imagine if you were walking down the street and you had two guys chatting to each other like this. You'd raise an eyebrow and look at them because something about the way they're speaking would strike you as fake and artificial. What's really interesting here is how, in theory, this scene should have been quite good. The characters have a great dynamic going on. Thor envies Star-Lord and how he has a group of people he loves. Star-Lord feels sorry for Thor and wishes he could have his own family like he does. But Thor could never do that because so many people he's loved have either died or left him, he's unable to fall in love again. All of those sentiments are brilliant, in theory, so why does this scene not work? Well, it's because the dialogue you just heard is what happens when a writer fails to use subtext. And what is subtext? Simply, subtext is what is not explicitly said. It is the information dialogue gives us that is not on the surface level. To demonstrate the power of subtext, let's rewrite that scene you just heard so the only change is that subtext has now been introduced. We begin with Star-Lord joking around with Rocket and Drax. One of them tells a joke and they all start laughing. We see them having a wonderful time. Then we cut to Thor looking at them, holding a smile that's failing to reach his eyes. And as their laughter grows louder, Thor's face, oddly, becomes sadder. He leaves the ship. Peter notices his pain, so follows him. "Are you all right?" asks Peter. "Oh yes, fine. Just needed some fresh air," says Thor with a laugh. Peter gives Thor a long analytical look, and the fake happiness on Thor's face begins to crack. "Come back in," says Peter. "Me and Rocket were about to play a round of Intergalactic Gargle Blaster. You're welcome to join in." Oh no, I wouldn't want to intrude," he replies instantly. Another long silence. Peter looks Thor dead in the eyes, and Thor tries to look at him back, but can't stand the concern on Peter's face, so he looks away. This goes on for a while before Peter breaks the tension, giving Thor a friendly hit in the arm, saying, "Stay safe, Thor." "You as well," he replies. End scene. That exchange is the exact same scene, only now all of that meaning is buried beneath what the characters are explicitly saying. And look how much more authentic the characters feel. Now that dialogue isn't exactly Shakespeare, I'm not sure I'd want to put my name to it, but it gets the point across, because that is the power of subtext. Any dialogue exchange is suddenly so much more captivating and realistic when you employ subtext properly. When you analyse how real people speak, subtext is used in every other sentence. And what's quite fascinating about Thor Love and Thunder is how the device is used a grand total of about 1 time in the entire film. Again and again, information is explicitly said to you, the audience, and my god does it ruin this movie's dialogue. Here's another example.
"No, leave me here. I want to die a warrior's death, on the battlefield, in battle, and then I can claim my place in Valhalla."
I appreciate this line sets up a joke about how she's gotten her own belief system wrong.
Oh, I hate to break it to you, but for a warrior to get into Valhalla, you have to die in the battle. You survived.
Oh shit!
Which is a joke of questionable hilarity, like many are in this film. But was it worth that stiff, fake-feeling line of dialogue, which gave very stilted exposition in order to set up this joke? Even if that joke were laugh-out-loud funny, I'd still say no, because it's such a stiff line, it makes her feel like a two-dimensional caricature rather than a real person, and worsening things, her, a Norse warrior, forgetting how Valhalla works. That would be like a Christian priest forgetting the object on which Christ was crucified. It's not exactly believable that they'd forget it. But anyway, if a little bit of subtext had been employed here, if she had simply said, "Leave me and let me die a warrior's death," making no mention of Valhalla, it would suddenly sound way better as a line. And you could still make the joke work alongside that if you really wanted to keep it in. Why would she need to mention it? They're both from the same culture. She would know that Thor understands what she means here. But if you ask me, the worst offender, by far the worst offender in Thor 4, are the multiple narration sequences.
But the more he pondered a life with Jane, the more he feared losing that life. And although Jane didn't want to admit it, she was scared of loss as well.
This whole section of narration, it really is a chore to watch. What I just played was a brief snippet. Korg goes on and on multiple times in this movie, explicitly saying aloud everything that went through their heads at the time. And it's because of films like this that narration in movies gets such a bad rap. I'd never say that narration in film is inherently bad, but it's quite interesting how often narration does feel like an endurance test. It is often the storyteller giving us a dry info dump, and we, the audience, have got to just sit there and slog our way through it in order to reach the stuff that is actually entertaining. Thor 4 falls for this problem, and it Thor 4 falls for this problem, and it falls... Thor 4 falls for this problem, and it falls for it hard. I can't say that line. I'm not even going to redo it. I can't even say that line. No, Thor 4 falls for this problem, and it falls for it hard. There we go. I said it, finally. This isn't to say that all narration is bad. I can think of a couple of examples that are really quite good, as they tell compelling, self-contained stories within the narration. Like Lord of the Rings does this, as did The Tale of the Three Brothers in the Deathly Hallows. Both of those are quite fun to watch, and now I think about it, The Naked Gun takes the piss out of the detective genre by having the protagonist narrate over himself as he's doing these ridiculous things, and it makes for great parody. The problem with the kind of narration that Thor Love and Thunder uses can be shown by simply playing said narration, because it all goes like this.
But beneath his god bod, there was still a sad bod just trying to get out. Because all of the bods that Thor had worn over the years couldn't hide the pain that he was feeling on the inside.
Sure, it's very blunt and on the nose, there's no subtext to it, and that's a problem. But what's the bigger problem here is how there's nothing this narration tells us that a good writer couldn't have told the audience anyway, but without the narration. By merely writing a good scene of dialogue, where Thor is chatting with Korg perhaps, and because of how well written the dialogue is, because of all the subtext layered between the lines, the audience now knows all about what happened between Endgame and now, all about Thor's fear of falling in love again. No hard-to-watch expository narration necessary. Ultimately, narration in film has a tendency to be quite boring, not because it's inherently boring as a device, but because narration is often used as a last resort by writers trying to get their exposition across because they can't think of any other way to do it. And that's fair enough, frankly. Like, every writer knows what it's like to be in that situation. However, unskilled writers are more routinely made desperate enough to resort to narration because they don't have the skill to inject subtext into the story itself in the way good writers do. And also, because they're unskilled writers, they can't write good narration anyway, as they fail to use the device in fun ways, such as to generate really quite good humour and great characterization in Deadpool, or to tell a genuinely gripping standalone story such as the defeat of Sauron, or the three brothers trying to outwit death in Harry Potter. Subtext is hands down the most efficient, effective way of delivering exposition that exists. In a very brief space of time, good writers can convey so much more exposition than bad writers can using subtext, and even better, they'll do it without you even realizing that they've given you exposition. Let me think of a quick example to prove that. Let's say we have a man at home, and then a woman walks through the door. He says, "How was work?" and she huffs through the nose before replying, "Oh, you know." Then she forces a brief smile that quickly devolves into a tired expression. He walks up to her, concern on his face, but before he can say anything, she asks, completely out of nowhere, "Did the plumber finally come today?" Now that dialogue, again, isn't exactly Shakespeare, right? But just from that brief exchange, we can gauge so much information that is not explicitly said. That her job is wearing her down and does so regularly. We can discern that these two are romantically engaged by how he cares for her, although that's not exactly subtext, I don't think, but what is subtext is how she asks that random segue of a question about a plumber to stop him from asking her what's wrong. What does that tell us? That she doesn't want to talk about it, perhaps because she loves him and doesn't want to unload all of her crap on him and just sour his mood. Or perhaps she hates being pitied. She hates looking weak, potentially hinting at a flaw in her character. We also know that they're having problems with their plumbing, and also that the plumber has stood them up at least once because she uses the word finally when asking if he came by, indicating that she's frustrated. We can also discern that this guy didn't go to work today while she did, as he was there to meet the plumber, implying that he's either self-employed or sick or on holiday or has another reason to stay at home while she's at work. That right there was 3 lines of dialogue, just 3. But look how much work those lines are doing. Don't just look at the sheer quantity of exposition given out, look at how those 3 lines achieved all of this with seemingly such little effort. This isn't obvious exposition like,
"This is why we're here. Unobtainium. Because this little gray rock sells for 20 million a kilo. That's the only reason."
It's instead subtle exposition. That is what subtext does. It doesn't just make dialogue feel way more natural, which it does. It makes the story feel just so rich, as every line, every action has so much meaning behind it. If you can master subtext, you never have to worry about your story having blunt, lazy, on-the-nose exposition like this.
After thousands of years of living, you don't seem to know who the hell you are.
Because not only have you given out that exposition layered between the lines, you've done it without the viewer even realizing that you've given them exposition. You've done it so subtly. But what I think's the main power of subtext is how we humans love puzzles, and the more subtext you have, the more puzzles the audience has to solve. How many times have you played a game, you're just on the brink of solving a problem, and then the character says aloud a huge hint on how to solve it, just as you're about to solve it yourself, and it frustrates the hell out of you, because you would have rather solved the puzzle all on your own. That is the principle behind subtext. We love it when we're challenged, and we hate it when we're treated like babies and our problems are solved for us. Andrew Stanton, the director of WALL-E and Finding Nemo, put exactly this sentiment down perfectly by saying,
"It confirms something I really had a hunch on, is that the audience actually wants to work for their meal. They just don't want to know that they're doing that. That's your job as a storyteller, is to hide the fact that you're making them work for their meal. It's this well-organized absence of information that draws us in." I first started really understanding this storytelling device when I was writing with Bob Peterson on Finding Nemo, and we would call this the unifying theory of 2 + 2. Make the audience put things together. Don't give them 4, give them 2 + 2. The elements you provide and the order you place them in is crucial to whether you succeed or fail at engaging the audience. Editors and screenwriters have known this all along. It's the invisible application that holds our attention to story.
I honestly think that if you as a writer had to write down in permanent marker a note on your wall, this would be it. This is a great mantra to remember every time you ever write a scene. How can I not explicitly say something, but rather present the audience with clues that they can use to figure it all out for themselves? When you pull that off in every scene, all the way through your story, that is the mark of a true master of the craft. Don't give the audience 4, give the audience 2 + 2. Always bear in mind the simple truth that bad writers give us the answers, but great writers, they instead give us the clues. I reckon Thor Love and Thunder would have been a way better movie if Taika Waititi had employed that mantra into his script. One other thing I'd like to say is that when I made this video, I nearly got fished. Basically, I was expecting a package for a Christmas gift, I missed the delivery, and then I got a text from UPS saying I needed to pay a redelivery fee, so I got my card out, and it was only when I started to type in the numbers that I realised, oh no, this is definitely a scam. Like, by pure cosmic fluke, I got the message when I was expecting a redelivery from UPS themselves, and they nearly got me with it. The truth is, even if you're very internet savvy, you can't bat 1,000. Like, methods of phishing grow more sophisticated every day, and you never know when just the right email comes in at just the right time to catch you out. Like Alex's Corner, one of my fellow Nebula creators, she got her account hacked in exactly this way, and they started posting cryptocurrency scams on her channel. Even if you're hyper-vigilant, that may not be enough, and it's because because of this, I'd like to recommend to you guys NordVPN, the sponsor of today's video. NordVPN is more than just a VPN. Like, sure, it allows you to browse the internet anonymously and break through all kinds of region blocks, which is very nice, but it also has threat protection, which detects phishing links and warns you not to click them, giving you the extra layer of protection against all those scammers out there. Nord also blocks malicious ads, it monitors the dark web to alert you if any of your passwords get leaked. It's more than a VPN, it's also a boon to your internet security. I've used Nord for 4 years straight now, it's been so useful to me. And if you'd like to join me in reinforcing your internet security, do click my link in the description and get a 2-year plan with 4 months extra for free. And the best part, Nord has a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it with no pressure, and if you don't like it, get a refund with no questions asked. Again, do click my link in the description and get started with NordVPN today. Anyway, thanks for watching, keep writing, and I'll see you guys next time on The Closer Look.